The students of Elite Academy could be broadly separated into two categories. One of the categories was the battle type. Wang Zheng, Olivius and many others belonged to the battle type, with their abilities more inclined towards battle. The other category was the support type. Xie Yuxin, Leah and many others would fall into this category, and they were more suitable to take up behind-the-scene roles or supporting roles. Specializing in battle or support wasn't representative of who would be more superior. Anyone had the opportunity to achieve a higher position. Based on one's ability X and their attributes, their curriculums were also different. It could be separated to core modules and electives. Everyone had to attend core modules. Electives were based on individual preferences. Absences without official reasons were a grave matter in Elite Academy. You wouldn't end up in a good spot unless your results were so outstanding that you could completely disregard the deductions that mentors would give, or if you could settle it with your mentors, one might even be expelled in the worst scenario. However, this had not occurred over the past few years. This wasn't just about being expelled. Various countries had chosen and recommended one to be there. If one was to be expelled over such trivial matters, one's future would be over. Who would dare to use such types of people? Even Olivius was very serious about his own curriculum. Wang Zheng took a look at his core modules. Ability X, Mecha, Space Fleet and Strategic Theories were the main modules. Other than that, combined sciences were also compulsory and would cover physics, mathematics, chemistry and etc. Obviously, since they were battle types, their lessons would be related to the aspects of battle. They wouldn't become scientists, but they had to have a certain degree of knowledge. This would allow them to make the right judgment when extreme situations occurred. This place was nurturing the protectors of humans, super warriors and successors to the human civilization. After looking at the overall allocation of the academy, Wang Zheng suddenly sighed. There would be politics in places with people. Nonetheless, its existence was reasonable. This structure was suitable for humans. There was a corrupted side to it, but there were also benefits. Elite Academy was a great product of it. It had gotten rid of geographical boundaries, racial distinction and had put the succession of human civilization at the forefront of everything. One had to be prepared for danger in times of peace. It was more important the stronger one gotten. There were also plentiful of elective modules. They covered various aspects of the human world, history of special forces, biology, research of aliens, development and destruction of Zerg, the origin and development of Atlantis and etc. These were all microcosms of humankind's history. Wang Zheng could smile even while sleeping. Knowledge was power, and these were things that couldn't be bought with any amount of money. Wang Zheng, I heard that Olivius has targeted you. Is everything all right? Asked Xie Yuxin over the phone call. Xie Yuxin was in the Huang 1 class of the Vermilion Bird region. His recommended curriculum wasn't from the solar system but the Aslan Empire. There's nothing much. We could be considered to be old friends. It seems that he didn't have enough when we competed during the last IG. Wang Zheng had always been more direct when talking to Xie Yuxin. From Wang Zheng's perspective, Xie Yuxin was the smartest amongst the people he knew. Yeah, I had some interactions with him. He even saved me once. Xie Yuxin told Wang Zheng about the incident when he just enrolled. This person can be considered a martial arts fanatic and has no other distractions. What he is chasing after is the strongest power. Truthfully speaking, it is rather rueful. The people of Arbiter are all so pure. There are reasons to their strength. Despite being a planet without an abundance of resources, the planet has now become one of the top superpowers in the Milky Way Alliance. Wang Zheng also agreed totally. This is a result of their innermost desires. The truth is that Earth has also desired to become stronger, however, we are too lazy. Xie Yuxin had laughed. The word, lazy, wasn't entirely wrong. There were too many historical reasons behind it. It could be considered another case where decline was inevitable when one civilization became too prosperous. The Earth had ruled over many eras. Oh, right. Where do I go for food? Do I need to pay for it? Wang Zheng asked suddenly. Hee, of course you don't need to. Everything here is basically free. Money isn't important, but the use of many tools in the garage are based on one's extent of authority. Students of the Huang classes have the lowest authorization, said Xie Yuxin. However, with the amount of things in Elite Academy, one wouldn't be able to master it all. Wang Jung nodded. Both of them were very busy and Wang Jung needed some time to get used to his new life. When he had settled down, he would look for a time for a gathering. After not seeing each other for so many years, Xie Yuxin was still Xie Yuxin. He was still as composed. Since Wang Jung had met him, he had never seen Xie Yuxin worried. Sometimes he really wanted to see how Xie Yuxin would look like when he was angry or worried. In the morning of the second day, Wang Jung had woken up and had started his training. He didn't know why he was so happy and his whole body seemed to be filled with endless amount of energy. After completing his morning training, he collected his own breakfast from the canteen. The breakfast was plentiful and was way better than those in Aries College. Moreover, there were more choices for the flavors available. The selection changed and rotated throughout the 7 days in a week and had different cuisines from different countries. The first lesson was an introduction to Ability X. Wang Jung had been looking forward to this lesson. He wanted to know about the overall situation badly even if it might only be some details or final conclusion. Suddenly, he felt that he was so thirsty for knowledge. With the qualifications and strength of the mentors in Elite Academy, they could actually adopt simulated lessons and electronic mentors. There were many academies that had adopted this way of teaching in the outside world. However, it was different in this place. The mentors in this place did not have such electronic products. One could tell that this place respected individuals. Those who were qualified to teach here would likely have a glorious past even if they might look ordinary. Some of the visiting professors were even renowned characters in present times. The one giving a lecture on the introduction to Ability X was an old man of about 80 years old. He had been around Elite Academy for countless years. Everyone had forgotten his name as the students would just address him as Old Mentor. Old Mentor looked at the students below and revealed a warm smile. "My name is Old Mentor and I welcome everyone that came for my lesson." Old Mentor was rather popular. The main reason was because he rarely made things difficult for students. One didn't really need to listen to things such as theories on Ability X if they weren't willing to. However, he was very strict for his examinations. If you couldn't pass or was found to skip classes, the outcome would also be devastating. Frankly speaking, he was still considered to be a more humane professor. We can see Ability X as a kind of phenomenon. The current common understanding of the scientific world on the phenomenon of human evolution is that these strengths originated from genetic changes. However, our research on genetics is more inclined towards improving one's muscles and the skeletal structure. We do not have the foundation to prove Ability X's existence with actual and practical evidence. The truth is that Ability X and genetics do not have a direct connection, and regular training of one's muscular system would not aid Ability X much, said Old Mentor. Teacher, if that was the case, based on what you said, there wouldn't be a need to train our body. A student stood up and asked. To be able to come to this place, I believe that everyone has been training very diligently. There is nothing wrong with this. This is because the use of Ability X exerts a great toll on one's body. Your body must be able to keep up with it. However, it would be wrong to believe that physical training would help in the development of your Ability X. What I want to tell everyone here is that the appearance of Ability X originated from the Mark of Life. Old Mentor wrote, "Mark of Life," on the blackboard and made a few annotations around it to emphasize this fact. The so-called Mark of Life is a category of understanding of the universe. Any objects, including humans and non-humans, or broadly speaking, even including organic and inorganic materials. Even if we are referring to a stone, it would have a mark of the universe. This is the core existence that we believe in. This is a step beyond the classification of genetics, just like how mankind had previously believed that all materials were made up of elements as the smallest binding matter. Subsequently, we had discovered atoms, atomic nucleus and even antimatter and dark matter. Above all these, marks are the core of where our memory is stored. Everyone started to discuss. There were many people who couldn't agree with such an iffy argument. Teacher, how can we see the mark? How can we quantify it? The mainstream explanation within the Milky Way now was still about genetics. This was because humans had not really been able to reach a higher level in unraveling the genetic code. With the introduction of a new theory of marks, it was a little exaggerated and seemed to be bluffing them. It can't be quantified and thus didn't exist previously. One can only try to understand it, but it can't be explained. Therefore, this theory only exists in this place. While you young ones continue to try to raise your abilities, there will be no harm in trying to verify this theory. The old mentor laughed. Asking questions is beneficial to everyone. The various theories within Elite Academy don't have to be the truth. Any truth is only relative. Most of the time, we can only look at things relatively, and at this current stage, how could we go about understanding this topic better? Wang Zheng was listening attentively. This was more in line with his understanding of Ability X. The explanation using genetics was a little shallow. Genetics was just a form of succession of humans themselves, while the nature of Ability X was a reaction of one's spirit and appeared in a formless manner. Genetics could even be considered to be something physical, and thus how could it explain something so ephemeral? Moreover, the direction of the development of Ability X was to communicate with the universe. Therefore, the so-called cultivation techniques would not be able to raise one's Ability X. Accurately speaking, it was used to allow the body to be able to match one's Ability X and withstand the recoil of using the abilities. The effects of similar elemental attributes cultivation techniques would be better. If one's Ability X was that of manipulating fire, using a cultivation technique that was of the fire attribute would allow the physical body to better adapt and communicate about the harm to the body. The results would be that one would be able to exhibit stronger power as the body learned to use the power more effectively. The time it could last would also be longer, and one would feel more at ease when using. As for raising or attaining breakthroughs in Ability X, it happened mainly in some extreme situation that had huge stimulations to one's spirit. It could also be due to enlightenment. Old mentor allowed the students to discuss this theory. This was a very important process. A skilled pro might not qualify as a great teacher. This was because what he needed to do wasn't just about understanding it himself. He had to help the students understand. Teacher, what you mean is that we can train our bodies through various methods such that we have enough strength to withstand the recoil. How can we then raise the strength of our Ability X, excluding the known methods of spiritual stimulation and the sudden enlightenment? Wang Zheng couldn't hold back and asked. All the current methods were all about these two methods. With regard to the awakening of Ability X, enlightenment was a more common method. However, this was still too dependent on luck. Old mentor was slightly surprised. What do you think? Wang Zheng pondered for a while and replied, the development of Ability X is about using oneself as the medium to communicate with the universe. We would need a more solid container. Instantly, everyone was laughing. What high-sounding sentiments those were. He was really aiming too high and had escalated himself to the level of the universe in an instant. However, Wang Zheng was already immersed in his own thinking process and couldn't care less about the reaction of others. Strengthening the container would be easier to achieve, and spiritual strength would be the way we connect. If we wanted to achieve more, it would always be about having a strong spiritual strength, and it would be best to think about how to utilize it more effectively. In this case, meditation should also work. Is there a highly effective meditation method? Old mentor's jaw had dropped. Are you new here? What is your name? Wang Zheng. I just arrived here yesterday, said Wang Zheng. Oh, kid. You have quite the imagination. However, one needs to be down to earth in learning. It is still too far to think about it now. Let's keep this topic in view. What we are going to talk about now will be. Old mentor skipped over this topic and continued with the discovery and development of Ability X. In the early days, Ability X users didn't had good days. With more and more people able to use Ability X and the fact that the ability could be controlled, they finally saw a glimmer of hope. The geniuses in the classroom started to get impatient. How would these stories help them in raising their strength? In just a short while, there were people who were distracted and sleeping. Old mentor continued to teach seriously. He might have taught about these many times before. They finally managed to last till the end of the class. Almost everyone ran out like a swarm of bees. Old mentor was known to be a nice old man in Elite Academy. However, since the things he taught were also the most useless, he was considered by many as the dawdling professor. Considering his age, he would probably be only suitable to give a lecture on these documentary-like things and treat it as retirement. Wang Zheng did not have a notebook or something similar. As compared to recording, it would be better to just remember it. Although old mentor was talking about the causes and development history of Ability X, it was nonetheless a self-correction process humans had on Ability X. He seemed to be trying to convey something. "Teacher, could I ask you a question?" Wang Zheng was not in a hurry to leave. A few people saw Wang Zheng taking the initiatives to ask questions and were ridiculing him. Clearly, this type of teacher's pet wasn't well received. It was especially so when he was asking Old Mentor. Old Mentor was just a broken record in their perspectives. Seeing that Wang Zheng wanted to ask a question, Old Mentor did not make any special expression. "Is there anything that you still aren't clear on about what I talked about just now?" "Nope, I wanted to ask about what you said previously. Could being more self-conscious help to improve one's ability X?" asked Wang Zheng. Old Mentor was stunned and he smiled gently. "Did I mention anything about self-consciousness?" "Yes. You said that ability X is the awakening of one's self-consciousness," said Wang Zheng. Old Mentor smiled. Hee, you are interesting. I am only responsible for lecturing about the history of ability X's development. To put it bluntly, it was to tell a story. It would be great if you all loved it. As for raising one's ability X, you have to go for lectures of others' mentors." After finishing his sentences, Old Mentor took his briefcase and left. Wang Zheng shrugged his shoulders helplessly. He was very interested in the things that Old Mentor had said. It was just that the other party didn't seem interested in him. As for how others would look at him, he had zero interest in it. The classes in this place weren't packed. The emphasis was on efficiency and self-learning. Wang Zheng also learned from Zhang Shan that Achilles had arrived. However, this brat had gone to the Vermilion Bird region through unknown means and wasn't in the Azure Dragon region. Zhang Shan seemed envious of it as though the atmosphere in Vermilion Bird region was the best. This also meant that Achilles' family still had some means. The new round of competitions had started. During the last IG, Wang Zheng was leading the way. However, he knew that Lear's and Achilles' personalities would mean that they wouldn't concede defeat easily unless their lives had ended. It was the case for him too. After eating a simple lunch, he started to prepare for the lessons in the afternoon. It was a lesson that all Ability X users would pay much attention to. Ability X Control. The objectives of the class were to increase the distribution and control of one's Ability X. This was a huge class and there were many students taking the class, and it was a class that combined lectures and practicals. The teacher of the Ability X Control class was Zhang Feng, and he was a real pro. His class was also well known in Elite Academy. He looked like he was just over 40 years old and was in tip-top condition. He would only have one class each month. Legends had it that his battle prowess would place him in the top 500 in Elite Academy. There was a battle force ranking within Elite Academy X. This wasn't open to public. The ranking had existed since the starting of Elite Academy. In the past, it was only internal information. With the occurrence of some international events, this reference information had then been known by others. Nonetheless, the internal information was still known only by a minority of people and its scope covered the entire Milky Way galaxy. Every single person who entered the Elite Academy X, regardless if they were currently in the school, had graduated, or even had been expelled, would be given a file. Unless the person was dead, anyone who had reached a certain level of strength would have his/her own battle force and achievement file. This was also a form of control on the Super Pros by the Milky Way Alliance and was classified as highly secret. Battle force was determined by individual strength, battle force with mecha, and one's ability to handle different situations. Consolidating the scores of different aspects, the individual would be given a battle force ranking. The elites of the Elite Academy X had been distributed across the Milky Way Alliance over the years. Many of them had even become unquestionable leadership figures. This ranking system had always been in existence and was updated constantly. There was only 10,000 people worthy to be recorded in the system. These 10,000 people were all definitely pros, with each of them being selected from millions more. Those who could squeeze into the top 1,000 could be considered to be dangerous personnel. As for the top 500, they were basically important personnel in various countries. Obviously, Zhang Feng had his own occupation. He belonged to the headquarters of Milky Way Alliance and was mainly responsible for Elite Academy X. However, teaching was only his secondary project. He was considered to be a guest professor. Therefore, when he wanted to start a class, he would always be able to attract countless students. They weren't just freshmen. Some higher-level students would also appear, even though what Zhang Feng taught might not be things that were very deep or were even some very basic things. Nonetheless, there weren't a lack of people who were here to see their idols. He had a height of 1.8 meters and looked gentle from the outside. The difference between old mentor and him was just like the difference between heaven and earth. Although he was said to be over 40 years old, one couldn't tell at all. What everyone could see was just a handsome, sharp and unparalleled elite model. Wang Jung had not expected there would be so many people. The classroom that could accommodate 200 people was filled to the brim. Half of them were girls. Did they have to be so crazy? One wouldn't know if they were here for learning or looking for a rich boyfriend. Zhang Shan would definitely not miss such a lesson. Lear and the rest had also come. It was a rare opportunity for Zhang Feng to appear. This might be a lesson that was open specifically for freshmen. When he arrived, Zhang Feng was able to attract everyone's eyes. Looking at the whole class, Zhang Feng laughed. I have always felt that I could consider myself to be young and successful. Seeing everyone now makes me feel that this world belongs to all of you. Instantly, screams and applause erupted. Student Zhang Shan was speechless. Damn, this guy sure knows how to get on the good side of others. Is he really as powerful as what the legends say? There wouldn't be any weakling with such a level of fame, said Wang Jung. Disregarding everything else, the other party's ability X grade would definitely be extraordinary. It might be because he wasn't an official teacher. The style of Zhang Feng's lesson was a little more casual. Making reference to some of the interesting things that happened when he was still a student, he could always cause laughter among the students. The things he said were also very reasonable and didn't talk about things that were too profound and hard to understand using his status as the teacher. For the students of Huang classes, they would have to first learn the overarching topics. In a battle, it is extremely important to allocate ability X reasonably. We have to be thrifty with our ability usage. It is roughly similar to a kid being the manager of a poor household. When I was young, my family situation was very bad. Therefore, I have cultivated the habit of thriftiness since young, and therefore I was also very stingy in the use of my ability. Zhang Feng laughed. Everyone has their own understanding about ability X. A lot of people probably prefer to release everything at one go to defeat the opponent. My understanding is that if you can make your opponent do it while you only spend a little to counter them, you will be in a position where you can't lose. This is because there will always be more options in defending than in attacking. Obviously, what I have provided is just a form of understanding. Choices in battle differ based on individuals. Since everyone is here, there's no harm in trying this idea out. The opportunities and conditions here are just right, so why not? One had to admit that Zhang Feng's view was very reasonable. No matter what you specialized in, once you were here, there would always be opportunities to learn more. This was also a form of battle experience. How far one could see would decide how high one could go. Zhang Feng extended out a finger and a force of the wind was created on the finger. Everyone has an attribute that they specialized in. What I will be teaching everyone today is how to improve one's microcontrol using high-frequency changes in the emission of your ability. The small gust of wind on his finger started to change magically on his finger. There were wave-like, rotating shapes, and various delicate forms. It quickly changed to a crazy form that resembled a fast and fierce electric drill. Instantly, the whole class went silent. Everyone was an ability user and had an idea how to control ability X. The strength that Zhang Feng had demonstrated wasn't strong at all. However, his control had reached close to perfection. Once you can control your own ability's emission frequency, you will possess infinite possibilities. This is not only a method of training, it can also create more battle techniques and make it difficult for your opponent to handle you, said Zhang Feng with fervor and assurance. There were no longer chattering for the rest of the lesson as everyone was listening to the lecture attentively. Wang Jung was very happy. He had finally seen a brand new world, a brand new power and many strong people. There was never a lack of geniuses in the world of humans. It was especially so since they were in the interstellar navigation era. With such a large population, fortuitous encounters weren't uncommon. Everyone had their own destiny and the strong that was born from it was known as hero. Everyone in the class wanted to become part of this group of people. What Zhang Feng had taught today was a training method for changing one's ability X frequently. As for how one could derive new techniques, the teacher could only lead his students and the students had to work hard themselves to achieve it. There was no wonder why there was so many people here today. The charisma of the teacher was indeed really strong, and he could use various ways to make his students willingly enter the world he guided them towards. Even Zhang Shan's space ability could benefit from him. His space ability was lacking in its ability to change its form and shape. The ability was terrifying, but honestly speaking, it was weak in real battle. If he couldn't use his ability, he would be no different from a normal person. Increasing and strengthening it would be his first priority. After the theoretical lessons had ended, it was the practical lesson. The facilities of Elite Academy X were undoubtedly very comprehensive. There were various devices for training Ability X, and one could use different methods based on the classification of one's ability. If it was to be divided into finer categories, the selections would still be astonishing. For example, there were various perception devices for perception-type abilities. There were also matching devices for the regular 5 abilities belonging to the 5 cycles. The theory was easy, but the real challenge had yet to arrive. Everyone already had their own habits in using their ability X. Some of them liked to release everything at one go, while some would split the usage into several uses. Controlling the frequencies of the ability X quickly was quite difficult. It was as though one was forced to use their left hand to write when you were already used to using their right hand. A small gust of wind appeared within the hands of Wang Zheng. Amongst the abilities that he specialized in, Wind of the 5 cycles was undoubtedly the most adept in transformation. This was a gift from the Titan star. After seeing Zhang Feng's demonstration, Wang Zheng understood the difference between them. The Wind ability was considered by him as an ability that was relatively easier to use. It would at least be unlike his Ice and Fire ability, which he could only release it at one go. He could be a little more technical with his Wind ability. However, what Zhang Feng had demonstrated was indeed a strength that seemed as natural as breathing. This required the accumulation of time and training to be able to do it. He tried to vary his spiritual strength. However, that small gust of wind immediately disintegrated. It was the same case for most of the surrounding students. They had always gone with their feelings when using their ability X. Once they lost this feeling, how could they use their ability? Zhang Feng did not say anything and was just observing the student's situation. The training of one's ability lay within enlightenment. One wouldn't be able to master it with just the teachers giving some guidance. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a teacher and could simply be considered to have a cloning ability. Enlightenment was hard to achieve. It was common to go through a few times, over 10 times, or even hundreds or thousands of times before one could achieve it. Most of the times, it would depend on if one had the perseverance to achieve it. There were a lot of students, but Yang Feng's attention landed on Wang Zheng very quickly. It was reasonable, and it would be difficult for him to not notice Wang Zheng. In the history of Elite Academy X, this type of thing had not occurred more than 10 times. For one to have his own file once one entered the academy. In other words, Wang Zheng had entered the top 10,000 based on comprehensive battle force stats. This was a rather stringent assessment and would definitely not be because of his identity or his connection. One had to have enough achievements in battle force to have his own file. Elite Academy X was responsible only for humans. It was an independent existence and wouldn't serve politics. Its only objective was to nurture the future pillars of human society. And in this batch alone, there were 2 freshmen that entered the top 10,000 in the X rankings based on their battle force stats. Obviously, both of them were at the bottom of the ranking. Nonetheless, this incident in itself was enough to attract his attention. Olivius was ranked X-9999 and had started hunting and killing activities in the underworld since he was 10 years old. He joined the military when he was 13 years old. Since then, his name of 1,000 kills was indeed a truthful representation and not an exaggeration. He had always been at the forefront of the front lines. Together with the title of IG champion, he had successfully squeezed into the X ranking. Wang Zheng was ranked X 10,000. Being a runner-up in IG wasn't worth mentioning at all. His personal experience could also not compare with Olivius at all. The Solar System Federation's level was not enough to be considered for these rankings. Having said all these, it was unimaginable that he could attain his battle force stats. Nonetheless, there were no doubts as to why he was shortlisted, and it was only natural. Zhang Feng had saw information on Wang Zheng. The information was mainly about Wang Jung piloting the Golden Wheel and completed a S-grade Zerg extermination mission during the middle stages of IG. His understanding of mecha was beyond imagination and could be considered a genius in mecha. However, to put it bluntly, his application of Ability X was a little trashy. Obviously this could be because he did not have a proper learning environment. In other words, he had huge potential, however, it wouldn't be enough if it was just these. This was because although Wang Jung's strength was not bad, he still needed to have achievements to support it. One couldn't disregard the incidents they were involved in. Although the extent of one's strength wasn't the most important. What was key was that one had to apply this strength in the most suitable place and time and making the right decision to complete the mission perfectly. Olivius had executed multiple missions when he was in the military and his performance was outstanding. At the same time, the title of IG champion would add points for him no matter how he had won it. The final result was that he won. The second reason as to why Wang Jung was shortlisted was also well substantiated. He also had achievements to support it. However, these achievements Zhang Feng was not authorized to check. The information within Elite Academy X was strictly governed by authorization grade and was centrally controlled. Zhang Feng's authorization grade was already very high in Elite Academy and yet he could not view these files. He was observing Wang Jung's training situation and he was really bad. This talent was just too poor. He had already seen Olivius and Olivius was rather powerful. He could even be described as terrifying. One should know that Olivius was only 17 years old although he might look more mature than that. This person had a determined heart and his battle techniques were beyond doubt. His ability X was also rather solid and the most important point was that he had a good foundation. This would probably be because of his constant involvement in practical battles. After all, battles were the best way to increase one's strength. The only thing that would worry him was that Olivius had too strong a killing intent since young. However, he didn't know what method had he used to control it so well. There should be something that he adhered to in his heart that allowed him to keep calm. As for Wang Jung, he looked a little immature from the outside and didn't give off the feeling of strong determination and a willingness to sacrifice everything like Olivius. He seemed like an easygoing and calm person. If it wasn't because he had seen the video where Wang Jung fought over 10,000 Zerg, it was really hard for him to imagine that it was the same person. Zhang Shan, who was beside Wang Jung, was moving around constantly. He was playing with a yo-yo. However, it was completely controlled by using spiritual strength. This was also a way to adjust one's spiritual strength. It was even harder for Zhang Shan's space warp ability to advance. There wasn't much assistance others could provide him and would depend more on his own enlightenment. Although the methods used might be different, the principles were still the same. He would have a chance of success if he could build a strong foundation. After observing for a while, Zhang Feng could no longer watch on. This Wang Jung's foundation was atrociously poor. No matter how great his performance in mecha was, he would need the support of Ability X once he reached a certain stage. Otherwise, he would be a complete failure. This also formed the foundation for the existence of Elite Academy X. He shook his head gently. Just when Zhang Feng was about to turn and look at other areas, his body suddenly froze. Initially there was a gust of wind in his hands. Suddenly it changed into a ball of fire, and the fire spark froze. Wang Jung was feeling a little depressed. He had always encountered problems with adjusting the strength of a certain attribute of ability. However, he was feeling more at ease when changing between his abilities as compared to the past. Zhang Feng's eyeballs were close to popping out of his sockets. How could it be possible? Teacher, teacher. Zhang Feng was finally awoken by the student by his side after a while. Naturally, there wouldn't be a lack of questions from students. Moreover, all the students were girls. However, Zhang Feng still could not forget the previous scene. Amongst Ability X users, there would be many who had more than one ability. However, they would be of the same attribute most of the time. Occasionally, there would be people with different attribute abilities. Nonetheless, a majority of them were a product of complementary attributes. For example, the wood and earth attribute of the 5 cycles. Earth could aid the growth of wood. However, Wang Jung's interchanging of 3 abilities was totally unrelated. The crucial thing was that scene where the fire was frozen. It had greatly stimulated Zhang Feng. This was because no one would be able to do so. Opposing attribute abilities, when used together, would cause one to lose control and go crazy. However, Wang Zheng seemed to be able to do it naturally as though he was breathing. Could it be that it was just an illusion? Wang Zheng was indeed feeling depressed. Wind could be considered to be the easiest. However, it had all end up in failures after trying over 10 times. As for Zhang Shan, he was having a great time. Zhang Shan had dragged Wang Zheng away. Let's change our way of thinking. Today is only the first day and we won't need to rush it. I feel that these training machines are rather fun. The basic materials for the training machines were all made of G materials. For example, the bowling balls, yo-yo and others were all made of G materials and could be considered to be both for learning and entertainment. Zhang Shan had a great time playing with them. He was gifted when it came to controlling ability X. However, being good in this aspect did not bring him much benefits. Space warping was all about distance and number of times. Often, it wouldn't be perfect. Nonetheless, both of them felt that they had learned much from this lesson and felt great about it. Both of them did not attend the Academy X classes. Therefore their experience was definitely different. As majority of the people had attended the youth classes, they weren't as excited as them. The other people were just practicing according to the prescribed routine and were sneering at the excitement shown by the two countrymen. Not only did some of them having completed similar training previously, many of them actually had dedicated training rooms. Therefore they were able to find the training easy to master. One had to admit that in this place, there were as many arrogant people as the pebbles on the side of the road. After the lesson ended, Zhang Feng left decisively amidst a group of lowlies who couldn't bear to part with him. It was definitely a worthy trip for him this time. The time he appeared in the academy had become shorter and shorter. It wasn't because he was putting on airs, but he had huge responsibilities and wouldn't dare to slack off. Elite Academy X didn't consist of only a single academy. After the lesson ended, Zhang Feng did not leave the academy immediately but had arrived at the door of an office. He knocked on the door gently. "Come in. You really know how to choose the time. I have just made tea," said old mentor with a smile. His eyes were staring on his teapot as though he had seen a beautiful lady. Zhang Feng sat opposite of him. "That was it wasn't easy for me to make this trip, and I wish to be able to leave smoothly later." "Hee, come, it is a great time for this wonderful tea." The boiling water automatically filled the cup and steam could be seen rising. Zhang Feng placed the cup below his nose and took a deep sniff. The fragrance was mentally refreshing. "How is the situation at the front line?" asked old mentor. "It is still rather peaceful and therefore I could make this trip. The current batch of Heaven class students is about to graduate, but it is a pity that not many are willing to stay behind. Only a silly guy like you would be willing to do these arduous but fruitless things. The new batch should have almost completed their preparations," said old mentor. "Teacher, there were two interesting kids amongst the freshmen." "Hee, you must be talking about Olivius and Wang Zheng." "Yeah, Olivius has the same disposition as that man and is a hard-to-come-by general-level talent. As for Wang Zheng, he is a little special, and it is rare to see a type like him. However, his abilities were a little strange. You should just settle your own things and stop worrying over these trivial things." Old mentor laughed. "Youth is capital. However, there are too many uncertainties in the process of becoming a pro. Among those with great gifts, a majority of them have lost it over time. It will require more time to determine who is made of real gold. For example, you were almost expelled," teased old mentor. Zhang Feng rubbed his nose. He knew that teacher had never cared much about results and fame. He placed more emphasis on one's attitude. One's attitude would decide how far one could go. Based on the current information we have, Wang Zheng has ice, fire, and wind abilities, among which the wind ability has just appeared recently. It is rare to have an ability user who can possess so many abilities. One shouldn't bite off more than she can chew. Having more abilities wouldn't necessarily be better. One should pursue mastery instead, said old mentor. Zhang Feng was slightly shocked. Teacher, your tone isn't right. Did this kid offend you? Old mentor shook his head helplessly. How can he offend an old man like me? Sigh. That kid might seem harmless, but he has gotten into more troubles than Olivius. There isn't any issue currently. To sum it up, we should try to make him keep a low profile during the school term. It is great that he has understood the importance of it as well. Teacher, I believe that he is a great seedling. If it isn't too difficult, do help him out if you can. Brat, how dare you start lecturing me? No one could cause more trouble than you. Get lost after finishing your tea. Don't always think of slacking off, said old mentor. Zhang Feng wasn't angry and was smiling. Regarding this, look, I've also had a rather tough time. I was giving my life to the country and the people, wasn't I? Take it, take it. Damn, you only know how to take advantage of the old. Zhang Feng immediately grabbed the box and ran away. Old mentor revealed a smile. Clearly, this was specially prepared for his disciple. Freshman registration could always bring about some sense of superiority to the seniors. Naturally, the students from the Zan class were the most happy about it as they finally had a place to show off. Hu Ba was definitely not the first and would definitely not be the last. It was just that the way each person wanted to act cool was different. However, this was not limited to the Heaven and Earth class students. Students who had reached these two levels would have to execute various practical missions. As for what the practical missions were, no one knew. Nonetheless, one would have to reach a certain level of strength to be qualified to participate. At Vermilion Bird Region, Heaven class, those who could reach this level could be considered to be the cream of the crop in this place. Juliet was a famous genius girl in the entire Elite Academy X and was the youngest B-rank Ability X user. Moreover, she was a rare prophetic type Ability X user and was undoubtedly the authority in this field. Xie Yuxin also had an Ability X in this field, however, he was dwarfed in comparison to Juliet. Juliet, are there any decent freshmen in this batch? Xie, what was there to look at for a bunch of hot-headed youths? There hasn't been any improvement in their general levels in recent years despite them being so arrogant. Looking at her companions teasing the freshmen, Juliet smiled and said, astrology is only a type of feeling and isn't a mystical art. Hee hee. Others have already regarded you as a goddess. There are countless influential people that would wish to have you help them predict their future. Juliet shook her head gently and replied, I have done my predictions. Would you all like to guess what this batch will represent? Servant, death, the hanged man? Could it be that it was the king? Those who weren't paying attention to this place had turned their attention here. Juliet's divinatory ability was truly unique. The future was hidden within the mist. You could foresee possibilities or directions. However, in the next instance, all these would change. Humans would never be able to accurately determine the future. The truth was that when you were using this ability, the future was changing at the same time. Nonetheless, one could only get some direction within the boundary of their own ability. As for the extent of the prediction they could attain, it would be dependent on individual strength. Obviously, this was the development direction of general predictive abilities. Based on the grade and type of one's ability X, predictions could also be distinguished into many forms. Juliet was truly very strong. She had made use of her self-designed unique interstellar tarot cards to predict what she wanted to know. Basically, everyone would ask her to make a prediction when a new batch of freshmen arrived each year, and it was basically rather accurate. There would be new stars emerging each year that eventually reached the heaven rank. Juliet turned over the card. It was the galaxy card. Wang Zheng returned to his own room. He had fallen in love with this place. The yuan qi in this place was very unique. It couldn't be described as plentiful nor deficient. It just felt a little strange. This stream of yuan qi didn't originate from the planet and seemed more like it had emerged out from thin air. To sum it up, it was just a little strange. The primordial regression technique could strengthen one's body, but in the aspect of ability X, he would still need to depend on himself. After the hard work during this period of time, Wang Zheng's body could clearly withstand his abilities. He was ingenious in the use of mecha, and this had allowed him to not need to rely too much on his ability X. However, this was clearly the wrong direction. If he couldn't use ability X appropriately, his application of the golden wheel would have already reached the peak and it would only be that strong. However, if he could add an ability X and distribute it reasonably, he could further raise his ability X. Wang Zheng suddenly jumped up from his bed. Why didn't he think of this? With his ability X, he would definitely be able to raise the battle prowess of the golden wheel to a new level. The truth was that it wasn't reasonable to use his ice ability to increase his attacking prowess previously. The spinning wheel generated heat in battle. Although the ice ability increased the destructive force, it had also obstructed the mechanical force. If it was the fire ability, it would be different. The power of the fire and the spinning would be complementary. Moreover, the construction of the golden wheel was in the direction of a super mech after all. Moreover, there was another power, and that was wind. Wang Zheng's first thought would be to add in the power of fire and wind into his attack. The destructive force would be terrifying just imaging about it. Invincible wind flame wheels. This name seemed a little too old-fashioned, however Wang Zheng did not care too much about the name. He was considering the probability of him being able to pull it off. Due to the restriction of the mech itself, the golden wheel still had some flaws. For example, the distance of the golden wheel and the lack of destructive force of it. If he encountered an opponent with a stronger defense, the cutting force of the golden wheel would stall, and it was common that it would lose speed. Although there was still impact force, the effect would be limited and he might suffer as a consequence. If he was the opponent of the golden wheel, he would definitely use non-metal weapons to defend. Entanglement was definitely the most terrifying. If the people of Manalasuo were to know about Wang Zheng's thoughts, they would definitely be shocked. This was because the military of Manalasuo was in the process of improving the golden wheel. Currently, the results from the experiment had been great. A strong country like Manalasuo would be comprehensive in whatever they did. The effect of the golden wheel had been seen by all the countries, and it would definitely be a simulated enemy of the other countries. The final research had shown that golden wheel still had lethal flaws. That was that the golden wheel would easily encounter problems when faced with nets or lock-like non-metal weapons. Obviously, the greatest opponent faced by the golden wheel was itself, as being able to operate it at an invincible level was already highly difficult. This situation had really baffled the scientists of Manalasuo as they considered ways to overcome it. Wang Zheng had long built up the habit of competing with himself by first setting himself a tough problem and solving it eventually to improve himself. The truth was that this was an unavoidable problem. There were always restrictions whenever they come up with something. From the physical perspective, this was an unavoidable and unsolvable problem. In other words, it was the theory of double-edged sword. If one wanted to solve it, she would have to jump out of the box. Clearly, it would be to make use of ability X. A ball of fire appeared on the left hand of Wang Zheng while a gust of wind appeared on his right hand. The fire spark and whirlwind approached each other slowly, and surprisingly, there was an attractive force. It had originated from the power of the same wavelength. At the same time, the wind had assisted the fire. Different from the usual small tricks he usually played around with, Wang Zheng was seriously trying to allow the two different powers to merge. Instantly, a spinning fire vortex appeared. This wasn't a problem of 1 + 1 = 2 but a composite ability X. It could also be considered as superposition or resonance. Wang Zheng was also shocked at how terrifying the stacking of powers was. The next moment, Wang Zheng suddenly realized a serious problem. Oh damn, this was the dormitory. Rumbling, boom. The glass in the room shattered and the fire dragon exploded. Student Wang was dumbfounded. It was just the first day of school and he had already severely damaged public property. This would only make his life more difficult. Student Zhang Shan was topless and was surfing the internet. He had just finished exercising and had finished bathing when he looked narcissistly at himself in the mirror for 5 minutes. Shay, how could I not have a girlfriend when I am so handsome? Others have said that the genes of the next generation will be better if the parents are further apart genetically. There are a lot of beautiful ladies from the Hail Cloud Empire. However, the girls from there are too cold. It might be cooling during the summer, but it would be hard to last through the winter. The Estina Federation is still better as the girls are passionate and sexy. We could try out different interests. Ha ha ha. Zhang Shan was uploading his own picture and related information to the school's webpage. Wang Zheng was too lucky with the girls, and an ordinary person couldn't compete with him. It wouldn't be practical for beautiful girls to come by on their own, and he would need to make his own moves if he wanted to be well-fed and well-clad in this aspect. At this moment, the doorbell had rang. Zhang Shan was shocked. Could it be that beautiful girls had come looking for him? He rushed excitedly to open the door. There was a black, charcoal-like person standing at the door. Who are you? Which planet are you from? I'm not interested in aliens. You look just like a blackened beggar that also looks a bit like Wang Zheng, laughed Zhang Shan. After a period of time, the pitiful student Wang Zheng finally managed to find a place that took him in, and he did not have to spend the night on the streets. As for the matter regarding his dormitory, he could only wait for further notice. The next day, the sunshine was still as bright and beautiful. To be exact, the weather of Inner Roland could be controlled. Student Wang was in an extremely good mood. The degree of damage to his room was nothing much to the school, and they also had no intention to punish him. However, the incident of student Wang causing damage to public property was still recorded down. And if it had resulted in serious damages, he would still be punished. A new day begun. Today's lesson was for a small subject, and it was mainly theoretical. Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan did not see Lear and the rest. Everyone could choose their own coursework progression, and it was evident that Lear and Luo Fei had changed their subjects. Zhang Shan was feeling great, as in any case he would be feeling uncomfortable if he saw Lear. As for Leah and the rest, they were getting acquainted with Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan, as all of them had chosen the same subjects. Sigh, why do we have attend such a lesson? It's so boring. Andre's head was slumped on the table. No matter which course you chose, you would not be able to avoid this theory-based technological subject. One could fail the exam, but one was not allowed to skip the classes, and they had to abide to it quite strictly. This was driving Andre a little crazy. It had been quite some time since he attended such lessons, and at least in the Earthworm Federation they did not have to learn these topics. Andre, chin up. Do you have any idea who will be coming today? Leah said very excitedly. F***ck, I don't care who he is. Anyway, I don't like to attend lessons, especially math lessons. It might know me, but I do not know anything about it. Besides, I am a warrior. What's the point of learning all these things? It's Dr. Gale, the super prestigious and most awesome person in the world. Usually, he would only teach the classes of the Earth and Heaven grade, but I'm not sure why he's actually coming to teach our Huang class this time around. This is practically a miracle. Yeah, right. Isn't it still to teach math? Andre was still in a bad mood. Leah rolled her eyes. Rotting wood cannot be carved. Useless fellow, what do you know? The scientists that Elite Academy X have are all top-notch, and they all possess significant repute. The school is also not stupid. They are not forcing us to study and become mathematicians, but rather, it is for us to understand certain things. We are the elites of mankind, and it is a must for us to develop ourselves as all-rounders and to possess the highest qualities. Unless you want to be no more than dumb cannon fodder. All these words caused Andre to be stupefied. The insult about being cannon fodder was a little humiliating. For those who were able to attain a C rank for their ability X, it was not necessary for their EQ to be high, but their IQ were all definitely very high. It was just that many times, it would be determined by their interests. So, what you are saying is that all these teachers possess great powers, Zhang Shan said. Of course, the teachers usually would not be concerned about our affairs. However, if you wish to obtain the privilege, you must definitely get it from the teacher. Leah laughed. If you were able to make the teacher think that you are a very outstanding student, it would not matter even if you don't come for lessons. F***ck, isn't this too unfair? Zhang Shan muttered. Looking at Wang Zheng, he knew that this boy was going to shine. As for Wang Zheng, he was browsing through the overview of today's class leisurely. Currently, he was staying with Zhang Shan by sleeping on his sofa. Even though it was a little small, but he could make do with it. His house had to be reorganized, and it would take roughly a week. Naturally, the school did not care whether he slept on the streets or dug a hole to bury himself. Zhang Shan, when did you become so childish? This is an elite academy. It does not mean that you are an elite just by entering this so-called elite academy. You will have to prove that you are an elite through your actions, Ison said. Fundamentally, everyone who came here was used to being self-centered. Regardless of going with the arrogant class, the pretentious class, or the feigning low-profile class. The reality was that it was still a type of arrogant and conceited self-confidence. Everyone was waiting for the opportunity to prove themselves. Without a doubt, this sort of place was best at igniting everyone's fighting spirit. There was nothing more exciting than to be able to defeat another genius of your own rank. Wang Zheng, there is no need for you to be so hardworking. Like I just mentioned, due to the extreme difficulty in obtaining this privilege, the teachers would not open their mouths easily about it in school. What's more, we are all newcomers, we just have to be more sincere and conscientious so that even if our results are slightly lacking, the teachers will not secretly attempt to stumble us, Leah said. To intimidate geniuses, their existences must be even more omnipotent. Even though they were not in the same field, everyone knew that the teachers of the elite academy were all capable persons in their own respective fields. Their aura was there, and it was absolutely intimidating. The school rules were strict and could not be violated. If you wanted to obtain a sense of superiority, then one should feel their teachers. Oh, by the way, did you all hear about the explosion in the male dorm last night? The guy was probably dying to be famous, and almost went too far when practicing his skills. Ison laughed. Zhang Shan was laughing till his teeth almost fell off. Wang Zheng rubbed his nose. Man, this really showed how good news would never go beyond the gate, but bad news would spread far and wide. Oh, right, we are also going to choose a class monitor for our class, Leah said enthusiastically. Ah, we need a class monitor? Wang Zheng stared blankly. No kidding. Generally, the situation for a small subject is that they would use a class as a unit. We are part of class Huang 7. But to be honest, this means nothing much as everyone's goal would be to advance into the top 3 classes. Nobody would really want to stay here. Andre was a little indignant. It was evident that his goal was not to stay over here. It was only at this moment that Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan started noticing the people around them. Basically, everyone was busy with their own things. Even though they had fell to the 7th class, their dignity was still there. Once they heard about the words, class monitor, there were quite a few individuals whose ears pricked up. However, the class monitors of the elite academy were not appointed. One would need enough strength to suppress the people in their class. Otherwise, it would be useless. Or you could also have a powerful background where people would obey you. Even though it was said that backgrounds would not be looked at, but as a living human, it was again not possible to think only of oneself. Mankind was the typical example of a social animal. It was time for class. Gala entered it, dressed in a suit. Wang Zheng almost spit out the water he was drinking. He was not sure where the old man had gotten the pair of glasses which he was wearing. It made it seem like he was very authoritative. He was indeed quite authoritative. Gale was happy the moment he saw the tiny sharp eyes of Wang Zheng. He had figured out from old Mew and the rest that this boy was too lazy. It was not the ordinary kind of laziness, so if they were to wait for him to call them he would be taking his own sweet time. Hence, as his old seniors, a few of them had been discussing methods on how to properly guide him. Using science enlightenment was the only power. Using force would not be able to solve this fundamental problem. To become a very capable person, it would require an all-rounded development in moral, intelligence, physique, aesthetics and significant effort as well. All the students in class immediately sat upright and still. They were all not fools. Before attending class, they had all went to find out about the well-known teachers of the elite academy, and some of them should never be provoked. It would be an awfully terrible thing to offend a teacher, especially if the teacher managed to seize evidence of your wrongdoing or shortcoming. And Gale was one of them. Previously, he had directly expelled a student from the Earth grade class from school. Even though he taught math, he had a pretty fiery temper. For those who did not know, they would have thought of him as a super expert. Actually, it was not that he would force students to learn useless things, but those were all relevant knowledge that would be put to use next time, thus they were all extremely crucial. The role of the association of those from similar fellow places had been effective. For those with seniors, they certainly would have inquired and heard about it. Leah and the rest were all very serious with their behaviors. This was because they all already knew that Gale was one of those teachers that one must not provoke. If old mentor was a good-hearted person, then Gale was definitely a fiery dragon, a demon that would cast shade over people without blinking. Gale was all smiles. However, Wang Zheng was not sure why, and he was having a good feeling about this. Actually, Wang Zheng knew about Gale's personality. If he was just being straightforward, then it would be alright. However, today he was putting on an act in this manner. Could it be that it was only to scare his students? Hee, all of you present are all outstanding talents that came from various countries. I am very clear about what you all are thinking in your hearts, and I also know what your goals are. Actually, I am a very easygoing person. Well, for my class, you must always be on time. I don't care if you all understand or not, but in any case, you are not allowed to doze off, not allowed to be distracted, and not allowed to ask questions. Gale finished what he wanted to say, and immediately everyone present was stupefied. Must he be so arrogant? Looking down at the students who were perplexed but also fuming with anger, the squinted eyes of Gale were as happy as an old hen who had successfully stolen fox cubs. There is just one thing that you all need to know, and that is that be it the arrangement of promoting to a better class, or advancing to a higher grade for yourself, it must all go through me, even if you are of the heaven grade. It was an aggressiveness filled with considerable arrogance. Even Wang Jung was stupefied, let alone his group of friends. As Gale indeed had this right, even though it might not be so exaggerated, but it was definitely not something which they could challenge. But of course, I am an extremely reasonable person. For those who are able to score full marks on my exam, they will be able to freely arrange their class schedule. Don't say that I am inhumane. Gale laughed. However, everyone was having chills. This entirely depended upon Gale himself. As a well-known mathematician, if he wanted to give them a hard time, it would not be something that they would be able to fix. However, this should not be necessary for Gale. There was no reason for him to make life difficult for a group of new students. The way Gale said it seemed like it was quite simple, but in reality, it was very difficult to accomplish. At least half of those who were present were not able to endure this sort of classes, and it was considered as an undisguised threat by Gale. Suddenly, Teacher Gale smiled, just like an old chrysanthemum, student Wang Jung. Wang Jung was stunned for a moment, but he immediately stood up. Here. Pack up your things and go get busy with your own things. You are allowed to choose freely for my class. Well, Elite Academy aims to optimize talents, and there is no need for you to waste your time on such simple things. In an instant, Wang Jung could feel the endless murderous spirits that were surrounding him. Damn, it is such a pain in the ass. Even in this place, the level of student Wang was still extraordinary. After all, he was the youngest member of the universe's Genesis Coffee. He had repeatedly warned Gale that he would study hard and try to improve himself every day, and that he must not let out all these things. As not only would it not bring about any benefits, but it would also cause troubles upon him. Buddha Wang Jung could only pack up his things and slowly leave the class. Even up till the moment where he stepped out of the classroom, Teacher Gale's expression was still so amiable. The group of people in the classroom were all petrified. Leah and the rest's mouths were all wide open. What kind of influence did Wang Jung hold exactly? Looking at the sunny and cloudless sky, and the classroom door that was already closed, Wang Jung also had no idea what Gale was exactly doing. He also did not have a good intuition. He had no idea what this bunch of old men were planning. He wanted to be undisturbed, but Gale had directly helped him to taunt and draw hatred. But what else could he do? He shook his head helplessly. He should better go do his own things. It was also not all that bad. At least he did not have to sit there to listen to the things that he already knew. He did not know what Gale had up his sleeves, but in short, it was nevertheless still a good thing, as he had time to continue with his training to strengthen the foundation of his ability X. Getting started was always the hardest part. One should never underestimate the individuals who were previously from the Academy X, as their foundation was extremely strong. In reality, the level of the solar system was still considered average. The superiority of the others was obvious. Even though to date the development of Wang Jung's ability was already very strong, but it had never been meticulously tested and trained. At this point, he had actually already passed the opportune time for him to develop and learn the details, and this had also caused him a lot more troubles. However, student Wang was enjoying the moment. In a blink of an eye, he had spent his whole morning training with the special yo-yo seriously. One could not help but to say that besides training his skill, the special training of Bonehead also brought about a very good innate skill for Wang Jung, which was patience. This type of foundational habit adjustments simply could not be rushed. This could not be fixed merely by loudly roaring and causing an explosion in the universe. The more troublesome it was, the more inconvenient it was, the more you would have to change it bit by bit. The morning passed by very quickly. Zhang Shan and the rest were chatting and laughing together as they came out. It could be seen that Zhang Shan was showing off and was already passing his judgments on everything. And it seemed that Leah and the rest were pretty much buying into it. The class ended. It was easy, even though we are a little bit lacking compared to you, but in any case, we are roommates. This sort of level is still very easy. Zhang Shan was very pleased with himself. Zhang Shan is in the limelight. After you left, everyone was dissatisfied. For what reason were you allowed to enjoy the privilege? Then Teacher Gale said that if there was anyone who was able to complete his assignment, he or she would be able to enjoy it too, Leah said. Initially, we thought that no one would go up. But Zhang Shan actually did go up unexpectedly, and he really completed it. Ison was a little envious. This lesson was truly driving people a little crazy, but they also had no choice but to listen. Zhang Shan does not need to come next time. I'm so envious of both of you. As for us, we are doomed. Oh right, Wang Zheng, what exactly is your relationship with Teacher Gale? Zhang Shan would have to take an exam every once in a while, but you don't even need to take any exams at all? The gaze in which Leah was looking at Wang Zheng was twinkling with a dangerous glow. Young sister Leah, by all means you must never fall for Wang Zheng. This guy is impressive looking but useless. If you want to fall for someone, just fall for me, Zhang Shan said immediately. Wang Zheng's face turned dark. You bastard, do you not know how to speak? Leah gave a death stare to Zhang Shan. Go and die. I am just curious about why he could obtain such a special privilege. Don't tell me that you are a big shot on Earth. That's not right. Even a big shot on Earth would not be worth mentioning at all over here. Wang Zheng did not want Zhang Shan to randomly brag. I won a University Student Contribution Award previously and that's why I know Teacher Gale. And I have already learned the content which we are currently at, so I do not need to take the exams. Zhang Shan used to be an outstanding student from the physics department, but he transferred to the mecha department halfway through. Actually, it has only been a year since this fellow took everything into account and entered the mecha department. The three of them including Li was stunned. In the past, they had always thought that Zhang Shan was one that liked to boast and did not have much standard. Who among them did not start training their ability X only after their awakening? It had been at least 7 or 8 years, but Zhang Shan actually only took 1 year for his ability X to reach C rank. What's more, it was the space warping type. Thesa he could be counted as a genius. Zhang Shan blushed. He liked boasting with other people, but coming in front of Wang Zheng to boast was akin to displaying one's slight skill before an expert. Just as Zhang Shan wanted to explain, Wang Zheng immediately changed the topic. How come we rarely see students who are from the Zan grade and above over here? Leah gave a smothered laugh. We are part of a Huang grade college, and our seniors will only come here once in a while. Moreover, your grade also has no relation to the length of time which you stay in the college. Only when your ability reaches the next level will you be able to advance. Wang Zheng nodded his head. This was indeed true. If you were capable you would be able to advance in a year, but if you were not, even if you had stayed here for 3 to 5 years, you would still be a new student. However, the conditions here were really good. Even if you were to stay here for a lifetime, it was also not too bad. So, what do you guys do during your leisure time? Zhang Shan could not help but to ask. He was more concerned about entertainment activities, just that all those who just arrived were all busy with studies and trainings, and they rarely would want to play. But Leah and the rest was stunned. You guys do not have the World of Saints? Yes, we do. You guys have it too? Zhang Shan asked as he was astonished. What do you mean we have it too? Did you guys even read the rules for new students? Over here, the World of Saints is essential. Even for the Heaven grade students, it's still the same. Just that some people already had it before entering the college. So, if you don't have it, you must go and collect it immediately, Li said, then she looked at Wang Zheng. This thing is very useful, especially for the adjustment of ability X. Wang Zheng was astonished. He had not expected for it to be like this. But if you think about it, how would it be possible for the Milky Way Alliance to not know about such an important thing? And if it did not involve the Milky Way Alliance, it would have long been banned. This thing is really magical. As far as I know, the college is also unable to control this. However, it is indeed very useful for us as students. It seems like the people of the heaven grade class are able to obtain cultivation techniques once they satisfy the necessary conditions, Ison said. Not only were his eyes useful, but to a certain extent, he also knew a lot of gossip. After hearing this, both Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan were extremely eager. It seemed that this was still controlled by the Milky Way Alliance. All these while Wang Zheng had been having a headache about how to bring out his skill method, and it was unexpected that he had traveled far and wide looking for it, only to find it this easily. Zhang Shan was very excited throughout the whole lunchtime. This news was like injecting him with a shot of cardiac stimulant. It felt like the world of saints was a virtual world for training. At the same time, it was also a tool for a person with ability to explore, and it could also control the risks very well. As for Wang Zheng, he was thinking about even more things. Initially, he had thought that the civilization that had disappeared was completely situated in the opposite side of the modern civilization. But now when he witnessed it, he had actually thought about it too simply. The complexity of the layers was not something which he would be able to understand now. For now, it was still best for him to do well the things that he was supposed to do. Wang Zheng, I feel that you have become much more low profile after coming here, Zhang Shan suddenly said. You are the leader of our solar system. Our solar system is different from the other countries who have seniors or whatever over here. There is currently none of our people in this college at all. Damn it, I just can't accept this. Our Earth is the ancestor, but how come we seem to be like grandchildren coming out here? Wang Zheng understood Zhang Shan's feeling. He also knew that he wanted to make some kind of achievement. Everyone who came out of the solar system was the same, even he himself felt that way. Zhang Shan, Lai Xin, Achilles, and even Lear. Even though their standpoints might be different, but their goals were all the same. Wang Zheng glanced at Zhang Shan and gave a faint smile. I have never ever changed. Also, don't be anxious. What we are supposed to do is not to show off amongst a group of new students. Their skill levels are too low. Zhang Shan's whole body was heated up. He had not seen this expression for a long time. This was the real Wang Zheng, the world's one and only Wang Zheng, their team leader. I understand now. Zhang Shan only realized now that Wang Zheng was not here mentally. There was no need for him to prove anything to a group of new students. Either he was not going to do anything, or if he did, it would definitely be a big thing. And even competing with Olivius was not something that he was being anxious about. Similarly, it was the same for Olivius. He also wanted to compete with Wang Zheng to determine who was the better one. However, that was not the main point. Only those with unfounded talents would be anxious to show off. Lear had always been very calm. Likewise for Achilles. Even Lai Xin was calm and collected. Were they all feeling inferior about themselves? Obviously, that was not the case. Everyone was waiting for the opportunity, as it was not necessary for the one who shouted more fiercely to be the stronger one, since it could also be a dog that barked loudest. It was evident that Wang Zheng saw the conflicting views within Zhang Shan's heart. Zhang Shan was able to understand, but from the beginning to the end he still felt that something was not quite right. Zhang Shan, don't worry about other people. You just need to know that you are the Zhang Shan who is unique and unmatched. Wang Zheng laughed. Everything became clear at once for Zhang Shan. He was not Wang Zheng. There were some things that he could never learn. He just needed to strive hard in accordance with his own ways. Zhang Shan, the brother of Wang Zheng, who is in the same pit together. Wang Zheng laughed and nodded his head. He stuffed his mouth with frog meat, and it was tender and fragrant. To recount, our Brotherhood trilogy is left with the last item of Pu Zhengwan. Zhang Shan had a cheap smile on his face. Wang Zheng spurted a mouthful of frog meat onto Zhang Shan's face. A faint aroma hit him, and a person appeared beside Wang Zheng. What is Pu Zhengwan? After a day of classes, Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan could not wait to go back to student Zhang's dorm. During lunchtime, Mo Ling had asked them about their class monitor, but both Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan were not interested about that at all. She was the class monitor of Class Huang 1, and a member of the student union, and that was why she was interested about the issue. And Zhang Shan's narcissism was for nothing at all. After listening to Leah's introduction, they were both already itching to get on with it. Zhang Shan even more exhilarated. In school, everyone would still be more cautious as after all, It would be a huge embarrassment if one fight hand in hand and was defeated. However, in the world of saints, there would not be such apprehension. However, not all trials were completed smoothly by Wang Zheng. But amongst these uncompleted trials, Wang Zheng had a special liking for the atomic burst. In addition, it was getting more and more interesting. Stones could be broken into pieces, but it did not shatter point by point. Wang Zheng was very sure that he had unintentionally mastered the King Kong finger strike plus the King Kong palm strike. And if he continued training, he might even master the King Kong punch at the rate he was going. While he continued with his trainings unceasingly, Wang Zheng also found a thread of inspiration to follow. All things had a central cause, and the atomic burst destroyed the balance of this cause, disrupting its very existence. This balance of the cause was a little similar to the center point for geometry. Just that it was easy to say, but hard to do. Different substances had different causes, just like humans. Of course, all living things had their own law of behaviors. And Wang Zheng felt that even though it was not easy, but he was still going to do it. There was a possibility of mastering this. This time round, Wang Zheng was indeed obsessed. How could one be able to understand thoroughly the causes and cores of all living things? Experience? Perhaps it might be useful, but there would come a time where relying experience could result in errors. There should be other methods that would be able to accomplish it 100% of the time. After practicing atomic burst for a long time, Wang Zheng also needed some rest. It consumed too much energy, and the more one rushed something, the longer it would take for one to accomplish it. And continuously fighting with machines was also not real practice for his King Kong punch. What he was lacking now was not his own strength, but how to see through the cause of substances. Sometimes, it would be better to stop and think through carefully instead of reckless practice. Wang Zheng did not hide this matter. He discussed the theory behind atomic burst with Zhang Shan, as the so-called cause actually had similarities with physics. Zhang Shan expressed his sympathy for Wang Zheng's hard work and diligent training on the atomic burst. You are actually training on that gross explosion? What's the use of that? Is it not enough to stab someone to death? You even want to cause them to disintegrate into powder to feel happy? This was definitely a waste of time. Only Wang Zheng would be interested in such a stupid trial. With his genius IQ, if he ever came across such thing, he would have immediately ignored it. There aren't significant limitations to the technique. For example, even if the opponent was to wear a 5 cm thick armor. Man, why didn't I think of that? Directly turning an armor into a coffin by blowing it up, but unfortunately, if I had any idea, I would have told you about it. It feels that this cause of each thing's existence is a little like one's Achilles heel, but it is even more in depth. Let's forget about it. It is still better for me to not make any irresponsible remarks. It would be bad if you go in the wrong direction. Zhang Shan tweaked his ears and scratched his cheeks. To be honest, what Wang Zheng had said was too mysterious. However, it indeed had a little bit of relation to physics, and he would find it too embarrassing to say that he had no idea about it at all. Wang Zheng nodded his head. What you just said was very helpful, let me go think about it more. What I feel is that if you have the time to think about this, it might be even more useful for you to think about ways to gather some special skills methods. Actually, Zhang Shan was still not too approving of Wang Zheng spending his time on this atomic burst. Atomic burst might appear to be very powerful, however, there were always a myriad of changes in an instant during battles. Between experts, more often it was a competition on who was more accurate, who made mistakes and who would die. Atomic burst was not too stable, it was not too suitable in the fights of experts. Moreover, whether atomic burst could be brought out of World of Saints was still a big question mark. Maybe it was just an entertaining trial. For them, entering World of Saints was not just for playing games. Their goal ought to be focused on cultivation technique trials that would have the effect of boosting their ability X. Especially when it came to cultivation techniques. Now that Zhang Shan had already experienced the sweet taste of power, he would be frantically practicing in the World of Saints every day. Let me try again, all right. Wang Zheng gave a faint smile. What Zhang Shan said was actually also right. However, he always felt that atomic burst was not so simple, and this was definitely not some game. Throughout all the trials, there were quite many that were extremely challenging that even he felt naughty. However, there was absolutely none that was like Atomic Burst, where he had still yet to succeed after practicing it for a month. Other trials, regardless of how challenging they were, he would still be able to come up with ways to resolve them. But Atomic Burst had been giving him an unrealistic rosy view all along. Even when he felt that he had touched the edge of understanding, but in reality, it was actually all useless. Entering the world of saints once again, Wang Zheng did not go into the Atomic Burst trial. Today, he had decided to challenge some other things. Having done the same thing for too long, his brain was also getting a little numb. It was necessary for him to catch a breath. Looking at his buddy list, Tentacles was online. He immediately sent a question over to Tentacles, "Are you here?" In the trial room, Tentacles suddenly quivered. News about Charcoal. Over the past few days, Charcoal had fell into a silent state. Tentacles was actually a little nervous in his heart. He really hoped that these things would pass. But unfortunately, it did not, and Charcoal appeared once again. Especially after seeing more than 200 rounds of consecutive wins by Charcoal, Tentacles was starting to regret. However, what's done cannot be undone. Furthermore, it was clear that the Shadow Organization would not just leave the matter at that. The command that the corporation had given him was to maintain their relationship and wait for the opportunity to act. "Here, of course I am here. Brother Charcoal finally has some free time. Do not hesitate to ask me if you need anything." Tentacles straightened his state of mind and opened up his audio chat to reply. Wang Zheng laughed. "Are there any new trials recently that I can challenge, with a higher difficulty level?" The trials of World of Saints were not always the same. It would be changed frequently. For some it was only the difficulty level that increased, while for others it would be replaced by new trials. With regards to this, the updates for World of Saints were always very frequent and diligent. Tentacles blinked his eyes. He had a sudden plan in his mind. "Brother Char, are you sure you want a high difficulty level?" "Yes, it's for me to change my mood." Wang Zheng gave a faint smile. The practices of Atomic Burst had caused him to crack up and overload his brain. He wanted to do something different to invigorate himself. Tentacles sighed. "There is a Hail Cloud trial, with a very high difficulty level." "Where is it?" "In the ice-cold forest." Tentacles shook his head silently. "You refused to take the road to heaven, but instead choose to push yourself to hell where there is no door. Charcoal, do not blame me. You were asking for it yourself." For the Hail Cloud trial, it was evident that there was important information which Tentacles did not explain. Acolytes region, ice-cold forest. Over here, it was an open snowfield for combats and trials. There were quite many people gathered above the campsite that was surrounding the forest. At the same time, this was also the base camp of people with ice abilities X. Hail Cloud League was in charge of everything in the campsite. Hail Cloud League, from its name you would have known that most of its members were from Hail Cloud Alliance. Of course, there were also people with abilities X from other places. The chief of the Hail Cloud League was Snowly, the #1 genius from Hail Cloud who was born in the year of the Ice Dragon Dance. And her ID in the World of Saints was Promise. Long before participating in the IG, Snowly had already obtained the World of Saints, and she built the Hail Cloud League all by herself. After IG had ended, Snowly had spent most of her energy in the World of Saints, and she was striving her best to gain the method that would allow her to further advance her ability X. Currently, the Hail Cloud League was already deeply rooted in the Acolytes level. The next step would be to enter the Saints level. However, before entering the Saints level, there was one thing that Snowly must accomplish. And that was the Hail Cloud trial that was hidden deep inside the Ice Cloud Forest. She had already tried 3 times and put in her utmost efforts for the 3 battles. In the end, the result was 3 defeats for all 3 battles. Today, she had made thorough preparations to go for the Hail Cloud trial for the 4th time. Arriving at the deep part of the Ice Cloud Forest, there were already people from the Hail Cloud League who were keeping watch. However, just as she walked over, Snowly realized that something was not right. The faces of the 3 persons who were keeping watch of the trial entrance were unusually weird. "What's wrong?" Snowly frowned. "There is someone inside a." Snowly laughed. "Then I shall wait here for a while." Hail Cloud trial was a special trial where only one person was allowed to enter into the trial area at any one time. There were not many people who knew about the Hail Cloud trial. However, every once in a while, there would still be people who would come with the trial key to try it out. But there was no one who had been able to succeed. Majority of the people would only be able to last for 3 minutes before getting kicked out of the trial. For those with slightly better strength, at most 5 minutes. Over here, you would only be allowed to use 16-point techniques. Even for Snowly, on her third attempt, she had also only lasted for 10 minutes. Snowly opened up an information card and was about to record something down. She looked up and saw that her 3 subordinates' faces were still unusually weird. She could not help but to ask, "You guys saw someone going in?" The 3 of them nodded at the same time. One of them replied, "It's Charcoal." Charcoal? Snowly's glance shifted slightly. With regards to Charcoal, she also knew quite a lot about him. He had started more than 200 consecutive rounds of life and death games, yet he did not suffer any defeats at all. The strength was there, but hearing this news, Snowly was not bothered about it at all. The reason why some people had come here was to make a name for themselves, or even to become one of the 5 saints and so on. However, all these did not hold much significance to her. She came here to find ways to improve her ability X, and it was not just here. Many people from the Elite Academy X were also like this. Actually, blindly improving your level was meaningless. Instead, it might even cause you to overlook the essences of the different types of trials. If we had really wanted to talk about strength, the individuals from the Zon, Earth and Heaven grades of the Elite Academy X would be sufficient to sweep away everything over here. As for Munya, that was something that Snowly had no need to worry about. Of course, it would not have occurred to her that student Charcoal being so high profile was really just to earn a little more money for spending. But it was even more unexpected that Charcoal would actually come for the Hail Cloud Triala. Wait a minute, there should only be 3 keys to the Hail Cloud that were recently issued. She had 1, and the other 2 recipients were also members of the Hail Cloud League. How did Charcoal go in? He did not use the ice key. Snowly's eyes were wide open. Is he an idiot? Hail Cloud Trial, as a special trial, it had a complete trial sequence. Before entering, you must obtain the key to the Hail Cloud. With the key to the Hail Cloud, if you fail, at most you would lose some time and equipment. However, if you had entered into the trial without a key to the Hail Cloud, if you die, you might not only suffer from psychological trauma. At the same time, you would also be kicked straight out of the world of saints. There was this type of special trials that existed in the world of saints, and the reason was to prevent anyone from passing the trial through the method of repeating the trial over and over again just because they wanted to pass the trial. Chief, Hea, he has already gone in for 15 minutes. What? Snowly's eyes widened even further. Just at this moment, a sudden thunderous roar burst out from the trial area. A gigantic ball of thunderstorm clouds was rapidly forming in the sky, and following immediately, was a few meters thick lightning that struck towards the place of the trial. And there was a flush of red that appeared on Snowly's snow-white face. He entered the Hail Cloud trial without the key to the Hail Cloud, and at the same time, he also activated the Son of Saint trial mode of the Hail Cloud trial. This Charcoal, regardless of how high profile or impressive was he previously, or whatever legend about the Saint Master successor, there was only one outcome for him. His journey in the Saint world would end, and if nothing unexpected happened, it would be completely over. Did this person not have any basic common sense? Farawaya? Tentacles was surveying the Hail Cloud trial region with a pair of binoculars. When he saw the thunderstorm, he heaved a great sigh of relief. The Hail Cloud trial was without a doubt a conspiracy. In every aspect there would always be some trials that were untouchable, that would stimulate the strong to go challenge them. However, preparations would be needed before the challenge. But for Charcoal, he was not sure whether he was really brainless or not, and he had actually trusted him so much. Suddenly, Tentacles' face had a ghastly expression. He muttered a few sentences. Since he had done something bad he would not have a good reputation, and frankly speaking, he had nothing to say about his own lack of conscience. The deadliest thing was that he held the status of a Son of Saint candidate and had triggered the Son of Saint's trial. This was the outcome for someone who overestimated themselves. Brother Charcoal, please don't blame me. There is also no way for me to turn back now. You may go in peace. Life is a sad story. Looking at the thunderstorm clouds of the Son of Saint trial, Tentacles sighed sadly. Some choices were just that easy, and he merely chose a simpler choice. He had settled it this time round and would be able to account to the shadow organization. Dangerous could no longer be used as the word to describe Wang Zheng's current situation. If it was anyone else, it would all be hopeless. However, Wang Zheng himself was actually feeling very, very excited. That's right, that tentacles guy was still the most reliable. This was what he had always wanted. Even a simmering volcano had to erupt eventually. In front of Wang Zheng was a great amount of ice lightning mantises, the aboriginal of the second planet of the Hail Cloud Alliance. An adult was about 2 meters long, and its form was similar to the mantis of Earth. Its body had a power generator similar to that of an electric eel. It was once the overlord of the planets, up until mankind set foot on the Hail Cloud Galaxy. Under the situation of having no mecha at all, it was almost quite impossible for mankind to fight directly with ice lightning mantises. And now, Wang Zheng was facing thousands upon thousands of ice lightning mantises all by himself. What's worse was that the thunderstorm just now had enabled all these ice lightning mantises to be charged with even more electrical power. The electric bioaccumulator organs in their bodies had all reached its maximum load, and their following attacks would also be several times more powerful than before. Wang Zheng turned his head, but the path where he had come by was already sealed. He had no way out and could only continue going forward. Furthermore, it was also not like he had not experienced similar situations. He had gone through it during IG, and during that S-class mission. Just that this time, he had no mech, and he also did not have the Golden Wheel Battle King. However, this was Saint World, a new environment where cultivation techniques and human might could win the day. Moreover, he could feel the abundance of Yuan Qi in the air. In fact, it was strengthening in intensity. What other place would be better to test the wind flame wheel which he had been closely pondering? Boom! In his hands, flames started burning. It was a fire ability X. But it was not just that. There was also wind, soundless and stirless. The whisperings of this gale could suppress all. The fire was fanned by the use of the wind, and 2 rumbling and burning wind flame wheels appeared in Wang Zheng's hands. It was the 2 wheels of the Golden Wheel Battle King. If it was any other type of ability X skill, it would have been impossible to create something so realistic. The result would be a mere imitation. However, the wheels created by Wang Zheng were realistic beyond a doubt. In fact, they took this form as Wang Zheng was especially fond of the ones of the Golden Wheel Battle King. An ice lightning mantis launched its attack. It was a pouncing attack that was simple yet rough, yet it acted with lightning-like speed, like a mantis stalking a cicada. Wang Zheng did not avoid the attack, but he met with it head-on. The 2 wind flame wheels, under the force of being pushed by the wind, sliced the 2 mantis apart in a flash. In an instant, 2 of the ice lightning mantises that had charged at the most front was split into 4 halves. The fire wheel made a roundabout turn, chopped and burned off the front legs of 10 over ice lightning mantises, and returned to Wang Zheng's hand. There was not a single pause, and the wind became even stronger. This pushed the more intense wind flame wheels forward to cut and slice again. Human form Golden Wheel Battle King, quantity. Sometimes it did not necessarily bring about advantages in battle. The electricity of the ice lightning mantis had to be in contact with the target within 5 meters in order for it to kill or injure. And it would be alright so long as you were able to block them outside of a 5 meters range. Kill. Wang Zheng's eyes were very red. He had entered a state that was a little similar to when he was in IG and doing his S-class mission. His whole body was brimming with murderous spirit. However, it was also different to a certain extent. At the same time, while his body was currently making use of the 16-point blade technique to absorb a great amount of Yuan Qi, it was also connecting to the surrounding environment. The ice, the snow, the ice lightning mantises, the tiny organisms squirming beneath the layer of ice, insects, grass seeds, and tree roots. Everything seemed that they could be controlled. Everything seemed to be able to be transformed into his own power. However, there was a little thing that was lacking. This feeling was very uncomfortable. It was like being thirsty for 3 days and 3 nights, but when you finally saw a well and pounced over, you discovered that the water had been poisoned with extreme poison. Roar! The rhythm of attacks of Wang Zheng became even faster. As compared to during IG, it was even more efficient and fiercer. Every trace of power was used to its extreme. It was the ultimate massacre. The entrance of the trial. Snow Lee's face was pale like snow. She was currently watching Wang Zheng's trial through the screen. This was the privilege that one with the key to the hail cloud had. The person could check up on the trail progress of others. Of course, he or she would have to pay a considerable sum of money. Initially, she had wanted to take a look at how charcoal actually looked like. Even though charcoal was bound to be doomed, but in any case, he still managed to last for 15 minutes inside. If the Son of Saint trial mode was not triggered, perhaps he would really had been able to pass this hail cloud trial, and she admired him for that. However, she would never had imagined that Wang Zheng would be faced with tens of thousands of ice lightning mantises. Having been through the hail cloud trial for 3 times, Snow Lee was very clear that during the hail cloud trial, these ice lightning mantises were the most troublesome. The largest group that she had ran into was also only less than 1,000. And that was already a sure death round, and the only way was to try to pass through them quietly, and one should absolutely not disturb these ice lightning mantises. However, not only did charcoal disturb them, but under the Son of Saint trial mode, their quantity also directly shoot up to over 10,000 of them. This was simply not allowing any way out. However, what made Snow Lee's face turn pale was he succeeded. An unequaled massacre, crazy cutting and slicing, ability X, combined together with the 16-point blade technique. This was not a man but a massacring machine. No, this was a meat grinder. The ferocious ice lightning mantises were like pieces and pieces of pork, being frantically and efficiently grinded and turned into shreds. Bang! The screen turned off. Snow Lee had turned it off as she was unable to continue watching it. If it continued on like this, it would become a psychological trauma that she would not be able to erase in her lifetime. That was simply inhumane. The faces of her 3 companions were equally pale. It could be seen that their eyes were full of fear. Not because of the massacre, Buddha. The murderous spirit. The murderous intent that was emitting out from charcoal. It was indifferentiated, and absolutely not that which could be emitted by mere mortals. Go back, all of you. Snow Lee took a deep breath and asked her 3 subordinates to leave. Yes. Wait, none of you are to speak a word about what had happened here. Understood. Only after her 3 companions left, then Snow Lee continued using the key to the hail cloud trial to resume watching the battle. On the screen, the silhouette of charcoal had started moving. He was advancing forward on his own accord and was not using the terrain to employ defensive ambushes against the mantises. It was only at this moment, Snow Lee realized that one of the trial targets at the bottom of the screen was to destroy the ice lightning mantis's nest. For the regular hail cloud trial, it was simply to pass through 20 kilometers of the trial area. To destroy the ice lightning mantis's nest, this was just impossible to accomplish. Even if a 32-point fighting art was used, it would be impossible to accomplish too. It was simply impossible for one's strength to recover quick enough to balance out the exertions. However, it was evident that the use of cultivation techniques by this person called Charcoal had already been brought to the point of perfection. He was totally able to recover his own strength through his cultivation techniques alone. In the Hail Cloud Alliance, there was one unshakable clause when it came to dealing with ice lightning mantises, and it was to never offend the nest of the ice lightning mantises, but to just directly flatten it first with napalm. At this moment, Wang Zheng also knew that it was almost about time for him to attack. If this continued dragging on, he would die of exhaustion as after all, he did not have infinite stamina. 2 gigantic wind flame wheels were spinning violently. They were getting bigger and bigger, and they had become super wind flame wheels that were over 10 meters in size. Wang Zheng was a little speechless. As in the ordinary world it would have been impossible for him to borrow so much power from the outside world. It was a tad exaggerated. The 2 gigantic wind flame wheels of crushed everything in its way with an imposing manner, then flew through the nesta and caused an earth-shattering explosion. The trial finally ended. Wang Zheng also felt extremely exhausted. Just like what Tentacles had said, this was a trial that was highly likely to toughen a person. He sent a message to Tentacles immediately. Thank you, tell me directly next time if there's another trial like this one. After sending the message, Wang Zheng went offline. In theory, it was not possible to use up physical strength in the world of saints. However, he used up a lot of mental power just now, and his brain was a little stiff. After practicing for a long while, he had finally found out that it was not only feasible to create windflame wheels but how to better do so. However, when it came to minutely adjusting the ability itself, utilizing frequency changes, he was not able to do so yet. Tentacles' mouth opened wide. He was practically like a puppet as he opened Charcoal's message, then he proceeded to slam his head against a tree. Wang Zheng still felt refreshed after his first attempt of using a hybrid of ability X. Its power indeed had multiplied as compared to before. However, Wang Zheng was still not too satisfied with the control of the abilities. In the world of saints, the difficulty of combining a hybrid ability was probably only about 60 to 70% of the real world. The success rate was higher as on one hand it originated from the settings of the world of saints, which with pure mental power it would be even easier to bring out your ability X, and on the other hand, it could originate from the cutting-edge techniques that were available. But no matter what, this proved only one thing. It proved that this type of hybrid was entirely possible, and its power was also extremely strong. Now Wang Zheng was starting to believe a little of the words that were spoken by Bonehead. If one's cultivation techniques had reached a certain level, and the tolerance of your body was strong enough, it was true that humans would be able to break away from using merely tools. However, humans in the real world and their communication with the natural world was definitely much harder than in the world of saints. The powers that could be transferred were also not equal. Nevertheless, if it was possible to be so proficient at such ability and if one could use it in a mech, it was also not too bad. Hence, student Wang Zheng was very happy. Even though there was no improvement in terms of his finer control of his ability X, but overall this new idea was still considered to be a gain, and it was a good thing too. At night, the beautiful Milky Way appeared in the sky. Even though it was an illusion, but it still looked beautiful. Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan were already sound asleep. Zhang Shan was also sprawled out on his back. Even though this guy was very boastful with his words, but when it came to practice, he took it very seriously. Anything would start getting scary if taken seriously. As a result, Snow Lee was suffering from a little insomnia. It had been over 5 months since she came to the Elite Academy X. She was not unfamiliar with this place. After all, she was also a student of the Academy X class of the Hail Cloud Alliance, and she was also a representative of the elites. It was logical for her to be here, and not only that, Hail Cloud Alliance also had considerable strength at the Azure Dragon region. All in all, they were a strong nation, and Snow Lee was the representative of the new students. She received advice from her seniors, and these days, she had been improving rapidly, especially in terms of her ability X. So much so that even the shadow of that person was gradually fading. Just like what everyone had said, some people might have very good innate skill, but origin, opportunities and resources determined your future to a greater extent, and self-confidence could be established by hard work. The constant improvements had also enabled Snow Lee's confidence to become stronger and stronger. At the same time, her potential that was due to her being born in the year of Ice Dragon Dance was also gradually being exposed. Perhaps the next time when they meet, she would be able to defeat him. Snow Lee had thought about the many kinds of circumstances where they would meet again. Sometimes she would even be a little worried, would he obliterate all men? This was something very sad. A girl's heart would always have a little bit of unrealistic dreams, hoping that he was an invincible knight. Yet as soon as that wheel appeared in the world of saints, Snow Lee immediately knew who that person was. Even though he was wearing a mask, but you would never be able to find another person who was this calm in this world. Hybrid abilities this was considerably rare even in the Zon grade, but a new student who could be this calm. It would have been a miracle for anyone to pull off such a combination, and also unfathomable, but somehow for him, it seemed to be rightful and inevitable. For a trial that was so hard to solve, it was being solved by him so easily, and Snow Lee actually felt a trace of happiness. On her bed, Snow Lee was actually tossing and turning a little restlessly. Her heart was thumping hard. How were things between him and Princess Aina? Wang Zheng settled his heart down to concentrate. He had made new progress with his ability X once again. Even though it was not very obvious, the future path he would take could be seen clearly now. The relationship between cultivation techniques and ability X could still be developed further. In addition, Wang Zheng had a sudden thought. Hybrid abilities were very difficult in the real world, but they were considerably easier in the world of saints. In that case, what about the atomic burst? Would it have a different effect in the real world? Wang Zheng could use his primordial regression technique as a guide, however, this was not something could be easily done. In reality, there was not much that could be learned from others, and it would require a great amount of time to figure out its method. Wang Zheng was also curious as to whether diligent practice in the real world would be the same as in the world of saints. If it was equivalent, then he would do it. Wang Zheng's goal for his practices was Zhang Shan's alarm clock. It was an antique-type mechanical clock with metal gears. He also did not know what Zhang Shan needed the alarm clock for. It was the most useless and also the most rugged thing in the whole hostel room. Made with titanium alloy, both of them would be awake every time before the alarm clock even rang. Wang Zheng stretched out his fingers and took a deep breath. He started circulating his primordial regression technique. Ring-a, the alarm clock started ringing crazily like it had gone mad. This was going to be its last Moana. Zhang Shan dashed out of the bathroom, with his mouth filled with toothpaste. What just happened? Was there an alien invasion? A god? My alarm clock, my beloved alarm clock, you have died so tragically. Student Wang Zheng was dumbfounded. He was just trying to focus on his cultivation techniques, and had totally forgotten that this alarm clock did not belong to Hema. Seeing how badly Zhang Shan was crying, Wang Zheng also felt somewhat sorry. Little clock, you have accompanied me since I was 2. This was the first present that Grandpa gave me, and I have always brought you around with me. It was you who supervised me while I studied, trained, and finally became a useful individual. However, just as I was about to get started, you had chosen to left me, in such a miserable way. God, why? Zhang Shan's scream was so miserable, but there was not even a drop of tears in his eyes. Wang Zheng had no choice and said grudgingly, "All right, stop shouting. Just tell me straight, what do you want from me?" Zhang Shan immediately stood up, straightened out his clothes, and wiped off the foam on the side of his mouth. "I have fallen for Mo Ling, so don't you snatch her away." Wang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. Okay, I won't fight with you, she's all yours. Geez, but she's the class monitor of class Huang 1, you will certainly have many rivals. Zhang Shan flipped his hair. Yeah, right. Who would your brother be afraid of, other than you? I am also not sure what's going on with the ladies. Their eyes would shine whenever they see you. Your presence thus affects my strategy. Wang Zheng did not pay attention to Zhang Shan. He continued to practice the atomic burst's motion on Ida since the alarm clock had spoiled. He would just leave it to be devoted to its duties till the end. Eventually, the clock fell apart completely, and its gears were turning helplessly. Looking at the looping construction on the inside of the alarm clock, each and every tiny gear, and each and every lever, suddenly, a complete image of an alarm clock in operation appeared in Wang Zheng's brain. The idea of atomic burst was not just merely destructive force. Rather, it was saying that all living things in the world had a cycle of their own. Since it was a cycle, it would have a central point. And if this central point was directly destroyed, the entire target would fall apart. This would thus require much less force than destroying the target's body directly. This was probably the original intention behind this move. Zhang Shan saw that Wang Zheng seemed a little possessed, and immediately tapped him on his shoulder. I was joking with you just now. There are plenty of this thing for sale at the entrance of the Battle College, $50 for one. Wang Zheng rolled his eyes. Do you think I'm an idiot? I was just struck by inspiration. It gave me the insight to complete the atomic burst. However, it's still at the initial stage. Treat me to a meal. My heart had suffered traumatically due to your interruption. Student Wang would not stand on ceremony, but Zhang Shan felt his heart hurt a little. Their basic living requirements were all free, however, wanting something better would naturally require spending money. Even with the current stage of mankind's development, communism was still something that was a little far away and capitalism still reigned. Zhang Shan's pained expression was suddenly left behind. He pulled Wang Zheng's arm and whispered, "Look, the highest quality." Where? Wang Zheng looked over curiously. A beautiful lady with a pair of long legs came into sight. Her figure was shapely and really attractive, and she had a delicate small face that was so fresh and pure. Face of an angel, and figure of a devil. Such a lady is naturally an extraordinary beauty, and ordinary men would absolutely not be able to resist her. If he was forced to, his life would be shortened by at least 10 over years. However, since I am a genius, she's totally compatible with me. Zhang Shan was starting once again. He was not just talking big, but now, he was in his just bragging to the skies. What about Mo Ling? Is it a problem for a charming man to attract a few girls? Zhang Shan's face make it seem that this was something proper and should be expected. Ling Luoyu scowled. She really disliked having people staring at her from all different directions, especially from Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan. Their behavior was simply crude and absolutely unrestrained. Everyone in the Elite Academy X knew that Ling Luoyu was beautiful. However, one should never, ever keep on staring at her, as the consequences would be severe. Senior, I'm so sorry, I invited you for a meal, but I was late. Just at this moment, another beautiful lady walked in and was repeatedly apologizing as she walked over to Ling Luoyu. Zhang Shan's eyes lit up. That's interesting, the beautiful lady was none other than Mo Ling, who was from class Huang 1. Zhang Shan ran over in a few steps. Haha, Mo Ling, you came here for a meal too? It's my treat today, let's eat together, in this Isa? Mo Ling blinked her eyes and was just about to say something. However, Ling Luoyu gave Zhang Shan a cold glare. Let's go inside, she continued and took a quick look at Wang Zheng. In her mind, she had firmly labeled the two of them as shallow men. Student Wang felt unjustly implicated. What had this got to do with him? Mo Ling gave Zhang Shan an embarrassed smile, and greeted Wang Zheng. Wang Zheng, my apologies. I have some important matters to speak with my senior about today. I'll treat you guys to a meal next time. Wang Zheng stood up and gave a little smile. We are also almost done and we're just about to go back. Let's put this off to a later time. Ling Luoyu suddenly stopped her steps. Wang Zheng? Ling Luoyu took a glance. This guy was Wang Zheng? The Wang Zheng that her grandpa had sang high praises about? Zhang Shan completely went into his picking up girls mode. He had swiftly gotten Mo Ling's number on Skylink. Then he turned towards Ling Luoyu and asked, Senior, how should I address you? I am Zhang Shan from class Huang 7. All the other students in the restaurant laughed when they saw Zhang Shan asking for Ling Luoyu's number. He was yet another silly but amusing guy who had acted recklessly. Ling Luoyu was the granddaughter of Professor Gale and was from class Zon-1. Her comprehensive ability was super powerful. But there was nothing that could be done, as after all, she had inherited an above-average IQ. It was possible that her suitors could line up all the way from Inner Roland to Outer Roland Garros if one had to count. However, this beauty had inherited Professor Gale's temperament. She was relatively straightforward, and since Professor was one of the members of the Elite Academy's council, she was one with true authority, and should never be provoked. There were only a few of her classmates who had her number. The last time Tyrant Hu from class Zon 1 tried to ask her for her Skylink number, the outcome was him being smashed into the ground by Ling Luoyu. It was simply a story that rendered every listener with teary eyes, and should not be mentioned ever again. Anyway, even now Student Hu would absolutely not go within the 50 meters range of Ling Luoyu. Now, everyone was staring at Zhang Shan. They were not sure what sort of mood Goddess Ling was in today. Would it be a verbal or physical battle today? The outcome of a verbal battle would be better, as at most it would just be an embarrassment. For a moment, the restaurant was so quiet that even if a needle fell it could have been heard. Then, everyone heard Ling Luoyu's indifferent reply. Give me your number and his. I will contact the both of you in a while. Cling clang. Someone's cutlery fell onto the floor and broke into pieces. Was there a mistake? It would be one thing if she gave Zhang Shan her number only. Perhaps she was giving face to Mo Ling. But why did she also give her number to Wang Zheng, who did not even ask for it? Mo Ling was also blinking her eyes in surprise. She did not really understand why. Only after entering the private room did she ask, Senior, aren't you afraid that they will give your number to everyone else? Ling Luoyu laughed, exposing a pair of small canine teeth. She was a little pleased and said, I'm just afraid that they would do nothing at all. To tell the truth, she had been hearing Grandpa Gale go on and on about Wang Zheng every day back at home. Talking about how Wang Zheng was a genius and so and so. In fact, it was so bad that her ears were starting to grow calluses. Moreover, after knowing that Wang Jung was coming to inner Roland, her grandpa started giving her meaningful glances, and the way he looked at her was like a smile and yet not a smile. Don't think that she could not understand what was going on, he was definitely coming up with some ploy. Really, Ling Luoyu was so annoyed, was she still his favorite granddaughter? Ling Luoyu did not want to admit it, but she was indeed jealous of the attention Gale lavished on Wang Jung. However, with her status, it was also not appropriate for her to take the initiative to find trouble with Wang Jung. After all, she was still a senior. Only those very frustrated guys would find their juniors to show off to. If one had the ability, one would be challenging the ones stronger than them. But since she met them coincidentally today, she would of course not let this opportunity slip by, and she got the Skylink numbers first. Mo Ling blinked her eyes, and intelligently decided not to ask any further, but to put forward her request. Senior, I have a mission in the world of saints that I need help with. In the world of saints, Mo Ling had already reached the acolyte level. However, her cultivation technique was currently still the 16-point blade technique. It was not because she had no other choice, but it was because she had an even better choice. The Holy Ice Art. In the world of saints, the Holy Ice technique was an extremely special cultivation technique. Its full version had the potential for 32 points. However, the conditions to acquire it was also very special, as the entire cultivation technique was divided into 6 pieces. However, people with aspirations were the most cursed in a sense. Mo Ling had already collected 5 pieces of the Holy Ice Art. One last piece, and she would be able to complete the cultivation technique of the Holy Ice Art. You have news about the last piece? Yes, it's with someone. Who? It's someone who you also had a little grudge with. The charcoal. Mo Ling blinked her eyes. I have some weird feelings about charcoal. He might not be someone who is easy for us to deal with. Ling Luoyu's eyes twitched. After being defeated by charcoal, she was a little depressed. However, she did not spend too much thought about the things happening in the world of saints. In fact, a considerable portion of people in the elite academy only regarded the world of saints as a place to play. Mo Ling, I know that everyone is very concerned about the world of saints, but personally, for me, I feel that that place is more for guidance purposes only. This world of saints is a collaboration project between the school and some influential party. I feel that they treat everyone more like a test subject, and of course, there would naturally be some training results, Ling Luoyu said. Mo Ling nodded her head. Actually, everyone being so enthusiastic also made the challenges more interesting. Some of the things inside were really very difficult. And the key thing was that the difficulty was not due to trials designed for failure, instead it really depended upon one's personal strength, judgment, and so on. There were numerous factors that affected the success of these trials. One couldn't not be serious about it considering how interesting it was, but at the same time, one shouldn't be overly serious about it as well. It's said that Wang Jung is from class Huang 7? Ling Luoyu asked. Mo Ling's expression immediately changed, looking at Ling Luoyu with a smile yet not a smile. Senior, don't tell Maya. D*MNU girl. What are you trying to say? Ling Luoyu was the well-known feminist from the Zon grade, who specialized in bullying males, but all of a sudden, she was showing interest in a little male junior. This was a little abnormal. Seeing Mo Ling's meaningful glance, Ling Luoyu let out a sigh helplessly. I am only telling you this. If this spreads, I will come and kill you. Ling Luoyu and Mo Ling were longtime family friends. They had grew up together, and were both immigrants of Roland Garros. Ling Luoyu had came here since Gale's generation, and she belonged to an influential family of elites. As the place that gathered the elites of mankind, Roland Garros indeed seemed like a little realm whereby only the truly exceptional existed. Of course, Roland Garros was doing this to serve the whole mankind, and was not interested in accumulating power. Once she heard about a gossip, Mo Ling's eyes totally lit up. Luoyu, we have been friends since childhood. Do you think I will betray you? Sigh, I don't know what's wrong with my grandpa, he wants to set me up for a blind date, Ling Luoyu said helplessly. Blind date. Mo Ling was so surprised that she almost jumped up. Ling Luoyu pulled her down and covered her mouth. Are you crazy? Do you want the whole world to know? Ling Luoyu was someone from Zon -1. Abilities aside, with Gale as her backer, As he was the #1 most honored and respected teacher in the elite academy, this little princess led a very comfortable life and was even bossy. Mo Ling was trying her best not to laugh, but her whole face was red from trying to hold back her laughter. She was almost not able to breathe. "If you want to laugh, just laugh," Ling Loyu said grudgingly. Mo Ling finally burst out in laughter. She was convulsing with laughter, a beautiful woman guffawing loudly. What a pity, student Zhang Shan had missed such a beautiful scene. "Well, Wang Zheng is not too bad. I actually asked whether he had any intention to be the class monitor of class Huang 7, but too bad he had no interest." Mo Ling said. "But Teacher Gale thinks really highly of him. He gave him the privilege to not attend classes on the first lesson. It's really ridiculous. I heard that there were already quite a lot of people who dislike him. In the Elite Academy X, where everyone refused to accept anyone being stronger than them, how did one prove themselves as the outstanding one? That would mean what other people didn't have, one would possess, and what other people couldn't do, one could. This was also privilege. If Olivius received such benefits, so be it. But who did Wang Zheng think he was? Just that this privilege of Wang Zheng was for Gale's classes. It was also not so easy for everyone to find the reason behind it. After all, it was not in respect to battles, and it would be lowering your own status a little to fight someone just because of this matter. Ling Loyu shook her head slightly. My grandpa is not that sort of person. Wang Zheng really doesn't need to attend the lessons. I'll tell you this secretly, he is the youngest member of the universe's Genesis Coffee. My grandpa said that if he concentrates on scientific research, he might become the leading person in the world of physics. Mo Ling could not let out any laughter anymore. So, what you are saying, Issa, he actually became a member of that organization. Universe's Genesis Coffee, it was unofficial, yet more official than any other official organization. It gathered the highest-ranking scientists in the Milky Way Alliance, including mankind and aliens. Every single person that entered must definitely put forward an adequate level of skill. And basically, anyone who could enter it at the age of 40 years old and below would be considered as young and promising. Ling Loyu nodded her head. Thesa is impossible. Was there a mistake? Even though Mo Ling's family did not deal with this aspect of things, however, due to their intimate relationship, they obviously knew how powerful this organization was. Actually, in today's society, the mightier the power, the more secretive they would be.